Welcome to the podcast that explores mysterious disappearances, bizarre worldly occurrences, strange phenomenon, and basically everything that's weird. Welcome to the podcast, Everything That's Weird. We are your hosts, Anthony and Brandon. And tonight, we're talking about the unusual disappearance of Lars Mittank or Mittank?
Mittank.
Okay.
The most famous missing person on YouTube.
I've seen this video a bunch.
Yeah, apparently a lot of people have seen it a bunch. It hit like 16 million views.
Yeah.
Like right after, it was like a year after he disappeared or something like that. It hit 16 million.
So before we even started this podcast, this was one of the things I thought we could do. It was just like a weird story that never had like an ending.
Yeah, it is very weird.
Yeah. Speaking of, I'm a little bit obsessed with the Idaho killings. The University of Idaho, you know that? Dude.
Have I not been paying attention?
No, you haven't. There's 4 roommates that were murdered in their house with a knife.
Yeah.
At the University of Idaho. They have no idea who it is.
Huh.
No idea whatsoever. And then another story we thought to cover was the Delphi murders in Indiana.
Right.
They arrested a guy, and they don't know if he did it or if he was like an accomplice, because supposedly the girls that were murdered were tracked down using this phone, like a catfish account. And it was, of course, some fat dude, right? It always is. It's always a fat pedophile.
Did he have like a carpal tunnel brace on his wrist and
yeah, right.
Cheeto crumbs on his shirt?
Yeah. But but he's like, yeah, I didn't do that. He's like, but I sold my phone. And when he said he sold the phone, the guy he sold it to was the guy that they just arrested. So it's really bizarre. But the Idaho killing things is even more bizarre, because at first they thought it was like a crime of passion, but like somebody killed 4 people with a knife, right? And it's hard to kill 4 people with a knife. I mean, just by average, one of them's gonna live, right? I mean, like 1 out of 4 knife attacks.
You never know. I feel like stabbings go like, it's either like they got stabbed twice and they died, or they got stabbed 975 times and they lived.
Right.
Like, you just never know.
But in this particular case, some guy went into they were all college kids, like 6 of them living in a house, stabbed 4 of them. 2 of them just stayed asleep. Didn't even know there was a stabbing that night, which is totally a college thing to do. And then, so everybody's like, well, it's the roommates that did it. And they're like, actually, no, not at all.
Right.
They would have blood all over them. And they were upstairs, and the 4 kids were downstairs, and they have no idea who it is.
That's crazy. I can't imagine being the guys upstairs waking up in the morning like the worst.
Hell of a night, you guys.
the worst version of the hangover ever. What did we do last night?
Terrible.
Oh my God, did we murder everyone?
But this story is bizarre.
The Mittank.
Yeah, because he's like a good dude.
Yeah, for all intents and purposes, he seems like a pretty straight up guy. I mean,
So he goes to he has like a girlfriend. He goes to school. So they do it a little bit differently in Europe, where you go to university like when you're like 16, 17. It's almost like vocational, except or instead, you just don't have. When you go to college, you take a bunch of courses you don't need.
Yeah, this is in Germany. He's a German citizen.
And so in Europe, they don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, what do you want to be? You want to run a power plant? Cool. You want to be an engineer? Awesome. Where's this start giving you classes?
Certain European countries, yeah.
Right, but this is kind of what they do. It's kind of it's called the apprentice method. And so what they do is they start training you right away.
Right.
And so he's fairly young. He's like, I don't know, 20. He's 24 when he takes over this power plant, and he's like the engineer for this power plant.
No, okay, I didn't know that. I thought he just worked there.
No, so he's like the engineer, but like right around this time, his dad gets sick.
He has a stroke, right?
Yeah, his dad has a stroke, and his mom's a nurse, and his mom has to actually like quit work to take care of the dad. This is terrible.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, right.
Because he's an only child, and he's like 100 miles away from where his mom and dad live. But every weekend, this is why this is terrible. Every weekend, he fucking comes home and helps take care of dad.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Just a solid kid, right?
Yeah.
So he's been doing this for years and years and years. And finally, like, people were like, hey, man, why don't you take a vacation? Literally, his mom is like, you need to take a vacation.
Mm-hmm.
And his buddies are like, bro, Bulgaria, it's going to be hopping.
Yeah, it's what I get is that this where they went was Varna, Bulgaria. It's at the Golden Sands Resort. And from what I've seen, this is like a lot of young German tourists go to this place. It's kind of like
a college Panama City.
Yeah, it's like that. So
right.
they you know, this whole resort usually gets a lot of young German tourists that are doing the same kind of thing, because it's like an all inclusive. You can pay one flat fee, and then you don't have to worry about all your food and all that stuff, you know. So, and it's relatively inexpensive, I guess. They were saying that's why it appeals to the college kids.
So he's a good looking kid, relatively intelligent. Like, you know, he's not like a doctor, lawyer, but he has a pretty important position.
Mm-hmm.
He's doing his life. Like, the guy's living his best life, right? And he's on vacation with his buddies, and they're out. And this vacation is exactly what you said. It's kind of like spring break, but not spring break. It's just them cutting loose a little bit. But there's a soccer match, and they're watching Costa Rica and Argentina.
Well, they were hanging out.
But they weren't. They weren't watching.
Separated, right, at some point from them.
Well, yeah, we'll get to that. But okay. Immediately they're watching, I think, Costa Rica and Argentina, and so I'm terrible at the World Cup. I don't know.
Well, they weren't. It wasn't World Cup. I think
I thought it was.
No, he's a fan of.
I know, but that's the point.
There's the German.
They're watching a match that has nothing to do with him and where he's from. So the reason is, okay, they're watching a completely unrelated match, and there's like, so we're Bengals fans, right? We don't like Steeler fans, and the very same exact setup, except for German soccer,
right,
is going down in this bar. There's some rival fans of the team that he is a fan of.
Right. This is the
Werder
Bundesliga league that's in Germany. It's their soccer league that's in Germany.
So he's a fan of the Werder Bremen
Mm-hmm.
football club, right? And he meets some fans of the Bayern Munich football club.
You're right.
And they start talking shit. They're like,
yeah.
Pittsburgh sucks, and Pittsburgh's like, your chili's terrible. And we're like, well, what up? What's up then? Right?
Right.
Because they've been drinking. And so, no, they really get into it. They actually get into it. And a lot of people say it's only words. Some people say it got kind of pushy. But at some point, the fans from Bayern Munich say something to the effect of, we're in Bulgaria. It's not hard to find somebody to pay to beat you up in Bulgaria.
Right.
So he was on this like health kick. And
well, his friend said he was eating. I guess it was strange for him because he said that all he was eating was like soup and salad. That's
right.
everywhere. Every meal that they would get was just soup and salad.
So he's literally like, they also said like his mom said he was kind of like on this health kick where he was trying to become vegan and wean himself. He wasn't straight vegan, but he was trying to wean himself off meat, right? And so they're hammered and they're like, Big Macs. And he's like, yeah, I don't eat Big Macs. They're like, Big Macs, fries, shakes. That's
right.
In that order. That's what I need because I've been drinking, watching soccer. Right?
And there ain't a Taco Bell here. So.
Exactly. So he's like, cool. So he goes with them. And they're like, they go to get in line and he's like, I'll just hang out here, right? So then he leaves. He leaves them at McDonald's because he's not eating McDonald's. So when he leaves them at McDonald's, they come out and they're like, where is he? He's not there. So they're like, all right, well, and this has happened to me. And we call it the California roll. The California roll is when you're hanging with a bunch of dudes and everybody like wants to do something and you don't, or you got to go home or whatever. You just bail. You don't say goodbye. You just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just, it's understood. Everybody's like,
the Irish goodbye.
It's the Irish goodbye, right? you just, everybody gets it. You just, nobody even says anything. Like you didn't even say goodbye. Like no, they're like, you caught a cab, you know? And his friends just kind of thought that's what he did. And then in the morning, he's still not there, but he does come back.
Yeah.
And when he comes back, he's like rattled. He's like, hey, remember those guys from Bayern Munich?
Yeah.
Yeah, they hired some Bulgarians to kick my ass.
Right.
And I think they were Russian mobsters. He's like, so these guys start fucking with me and they start beating me up. He's like, and one of them hit me in the side of the head and my ear is really fucked up. And they're like, they actually don't like really believe him because he's kind of crazy about it. But then they're like, maybe you should like get looked at. So he calls his girlfriend. His girlfriend's like, yeah, you need to go to the doctor. You need to go to the doctor, get that checked out. So he goes to the first doctor, and the doctor's like, yeah, you have a perforated eardrum.
Yeah.
And he gives him a prescription. And then he's like, he feels like the doctor's fucking with him. Because the doctor won't speak English to him. And he's like, I don't know what you're saying. And the doctor's like kind of mocking him. So he ends up calling his mom. He's like, what is this? And his mom's like, yeah, it's just it's an antibiotic. And he's like, what are the side effects? And there are side effects. Like, there's like paranoid. There's like, it's a lot of mental side effects that this particular antibiotic has.
Well, that form of antibiotics.
Exactly. So he never actually fills out the prescription, though, right?
Well, what happened was is he gets prescribed this. They tell him he's got a ruptured eardrum. He had something with his jaw too. I think he broke his jaw. Maybe I don't think he broke. He did something with his jaw. His jaw was injured and his eardrum was ruptured. So it's clear that he got beat up, and he gave him the prescription for the antibiotic and sent him back and told him he couldn't fly because the cabin pressure could rupture his eardrum and cause permanent damage.
Okay, so that's actually not true at all. It really isn't. Yeah. Like I have a lot of ear problems, and actually, this is crazy to say, the pressure wouldn't affect you if you had a perforated eardrum.
Yeah, it would pass through.
It would pass through. There's nothing to make the pressure.
I thought that was weird myself.
So this is why it comes up. He ends up. His friends are like, it's their time to leave. So he leaves with them. And he gets there and he's like, you know what? I'm going to stay one more day. And they're like, all right. So he gets a hotel in a weird part of town.
Yeah, it was close to the airport, but they said that all the places were booked up because of that time of year. It was like a real busy season. And so he had trouble.
Anywhere near the airport's weird, always.
Yeah.
It just is. Every time I've been out of the country, any airport hotel's weird. Anytime you go, you can fly into Cincinnati. That airport hotel's weird. It's right like it's just weird. It's just bizarre, right? So he ends up staying at this weird hotel. He says he's hearing voices, and he says it sounds like people are like coming after him.
Yeah, he calls his mom, and he says, and he said it like real whispery, and he was like, somebody was after him that was trying to rob him or beat him up,
right?
And he was kind of like paranoid about it.
So the airport has like a doctor that's like,
there's an airport doctor,
right? Which, why wouldn't there be? So he's like, so the next day he goes there to the
that was on his mom told him to do that. His mom, when he called her and told her that people were after him.
So the next day he goes to the airport doctor, and when he's at the airport,
he communicates with his mom. I think it's kind of important. He's like communicating with his mom at this point. Like, he tells her the thing like the night before.
He's very lucid. He's very lucid. He's not out of his mind.
Right, and he contacts her in the morning when he's on his way to the airport. He texts her again when he gets there, when he's going to the doctor.
So he's still like obviously shaken up by whatever went down after he left his buddies at McDonald's. But he goes to the doctor, and that doctor's like, yeah, you can fly, dude. There's nothing wrong, right? So he's like kind of checking him out, and just then it was like a construction guy.
Yeah, they were doing a rehab on the airport, and so it wasn't a construction guy that was just coming to the doctor or whatever. It was a construction guy that was just making his way through the airport because they had access to different rooms because they had to get into them because they were remodeling and stuff. And it was just like one of those construction crew guys came into the office, and when he did, it triggered something, made him freak out, and he mumbled to the doctor under his breath, I don't want to die here. I got to get out of here. And he got up and he ran out the door.
And he left his passport, his wallet,
everything, all his bags, everything.
Passport, wallet, bags, everything.
Cell phone, all that.
So whatever this guy was, it tripped him out. Now, they've said later they don't even know who the guy was.
Right.
Because it was such a bizarre set of circumstances that nobody stopped to take notice of who was who.
And most people don't stop to take notice of those guys. So those guys can be anybody. And you could grab a hard hat and a high-vis jacket and throw them on, and everybody would just assume you're with the construction crew.
Well, there's those guys that sneak into movie theaters
with the ladder. Yeah. You just take a ladder. They were showing how many different places you can get into if you're just carrying a ladder. Nobody even questions you.
Nobody says anything.
Yeah. So I mean, if he was like, if we're saying legit, he had somebody to fear, and he recognized that this might be one of those guys, he might be the only one that recognizes that fact. Everybody else might just assume that guy is just a normal construction worker.
So then he just takes off out of the airport.
Okay, and then this is the part when we first started the show and we said he's the most famous missing person on YouTube. This is where you see the video of him running out of the airport, and so you can get on YouTube and you can watch it, and it shows his whole little path that he takes from multiple different cameras until he disappears.
So his mom is shown this, and she's like, it looks like she's not even alarmed. She's like, it looks like he knows he has to get out of there. He's trying to go to safety.
Yeah.
He then makes a few maneuvers around the airport property, hops a fence into a sunflower field.
Barbed wire topped fence, from what I understand.
Into a sunflower field.
And
is never seen again.
Yep. That's pretty much it. And you can watch the video, and they track him with a little white circle because some of the cameras are really far away from him. But you can see him making his way through the whole airport. And when he does, when he's walking casually with his bags in, and then when he's leaving, he is running. He has no bags, no nothing. He's running out the door. He gets outside. He runs more. And even when he stops running, he's moving at a noticeable quickened pace, until you see him go way back into the corner and he's jumping the fence, and then you kind of see him disappear into the wood line.
Crazy.
It's very, very strange behavior.
All right, so that's where it is. Guy goes on holiday. He's out with his buddies. He gets into a scuffle with some local soccer fans. It gets a little rougher than he thought.
Football fans, we got too many. We got so many countries listening to us now. We got
correct football fans. And then he goes through another day or two of bizarre behavior. Ends up at the doctor's office in the airport. Has a freak out. Runs out of the airport. Hops a crazy security fence into a sunflower field and is never seen again.
That's right. Now, it's important to note that the doctor at the airport did say, because this was something you were saying before that he didn't fill it out. It was the doctor at the airport that said he didn't take those antibiotics. He didn't even fill out his prescription.
Right.
But I don't know if that was just because he asked him, because that's not his doctor. That wasn't the one that prescribed him the medicine. So how he would know? He had the medicine when he came back to the room, though. Whatchamacallits, his friend saw it.
So his mom did say there were side effects, but they were very minute possibilities of side effects. But one of them was delusion and whatever,
And paranoia, yeah.
Paranoia, yeah. All right, let's get into some facts. All right, so the facts of this case: he has no history of mental illness.
Yeah, none
cephalosporin was the actual
That was the antibiotic.
antibiotic. I don't know a lot
The
about
brand was Ciprazole.
Yeah, that's what I've seen.
Yeah. Well, from what I understand, they don't make that anymore. They only made it for so long, and then they quit making that. They only had the generic form, but they still use it. That it's still used in generic form.
They haven't ruled out that he had like a mental break.
Mm-hmm.
Also, his claims that like he got beat up by like Bulgarian or Russian like mafia, that's also not like thrown out away. That's a lot of people are like, yeah, that's a possibility. That's something that could happen there.
Yeah, he was pretty adamant that the people that beat him up were Bulgarians hired by the guys that started the fight with him over the football team.
Some people have said that they have seen him after this.
Yes.
Hitching rides with truckers.
Right.
Out of Varna.
Yeah, there was a truck driver that said that he. Hold on one sec. Ray, what are you doing? It's really loud. No, for what? All right, sorry. Anyway. Yeah, there was it said about a year after the disappearance, there was a truck driver that thought they saw him hitchhiking in Varna. And there had been multiple sightings in several other countries, but none of them could be confirmed. Now, there was a truck driver in a German truck driver in 2019 that wasn't aware at the time of the case of the disappearance, but it was like later on he saw it and realized that the guy that he picked up very much resembled an older version of Mittank. So, long hair, beard, but and more prominent cheekbones, and he looked like he had been eating right, eyes just seemed tired and all that stuff. But
so there was also another spotting of him in Brazil, and it looks just like him.
Right, I saw the picture. Yeah,
he looks just like him. There's a little bit of facial features. You'd be like, okay, I don't know, whatever. But this guy, he was from Eastern Europe, and he had made it all the way to Brazil, and he had no idea how he got there. And he was like homeless in Brazil.
Yeah. You'd see
right?
the picture though. It looks a lot. It does look like him. It does look like a scruffy version of him.
That's exactly what it looks like. A scruffy version of him. Because he's very well put together. But this picture is this guy, and you're like, okay, that could be him. And then here, he had been missing. This guy had been missing for like 4 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And his family is like, yeah, that's our guy, right?
Yeah.
So, when people say there's no way he would be missing, this guy made it all the way to Brazil and had no idea how he got there.
Right.
So not everybody has like the Amber Alert or like all the resources that we have to find missing people.
Some of them, it's not in their best interest to to
Sure.
even deal with that case or bring it to light, because then it makes
100%.
their
100%.
vacation spot go to waste. So.
Yeah, like Aruba with Natalie Holloway, you know?
Yeah, they wanted everything to do with getting rid of that case. They didn't want nothing to do with it. So
a lot of people had said, like, kind of his lifestyle had worn him down to where he had, like, a mental break. Not where he wanted to leave, but he had, like, an actual mental break.
Right.
And that, you know, when all of a sudden, so my mom had a stroke. And I was very young. I was 16. And man, you get put in this role where they're like, hey, you got to take care of your little brothers because I got to work and blah, blah. And it's just like, you could do it. It's not that you can't do it, but it's just a lot when you're 16.
Yeah.
You know? And big time, it affected my personality. For sure. I was one way, and then I became like another way, like literally like overnight. And I didn't like, it's not like I ruled my little brothers with an iron fist or anything, but it was just like, all right, man, this is what we got to do. We got to fucking take care of this, take care of that. And I kind of always took on that role. But there was definitely a point in my life when I moved away that I was like, holy shit, man. You can feel it, like, leave your body. Like, all I have to do is worry about myself. And it was almost like a selfish feeling. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But you feel that shit. So like when we said the Sneha Phillips. Yeah. There have been times in my life where I thought, if I just disappear. I think with him, whether it's conscious or subconscious, this guy was under some pressure. He probably had a lot of guys working underneath him. And not only that, he's taking care of his parents.
Right.
So he goes on this like vacation, and then it's a vacation for a little while, and then fucking Bulgarians.
Fucking Bulgarians.
Or people Bulgarians hired. Or people that Germans hired Bulgarians that hired Russians to beat up Germans. Whatever.
It's a lot of money exchanges.
But like the point is, like, he seemed like he snapped to me. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, to run out
There's also
of
the idea
an airport.
He's got a head injury.
There's
and that head injuries can manifest later on. They don't have to necessarily happen right away. So,
well, you and I are big football fans.
Yeah.
And there have been numerous football players, like Junior Seau, that have CTE problems.
Yeah.
And the problem with CTE is they don't know if it's over a long period of time or once.
Right.
That's the whole issue with CTE. It's like, all right, do you have like brain trauma because you got hit one time really hard, or because you got hit over and over and over really soft? You know? So yeah, agreed.
And I did a little research on it, and there's cases of people getting head injuries where their behavior was completely normal for a day or two, and then they started acting strange, and before you knew it, they were crying under their desk and reverting back to a 6-year-old and stuff like that. Just weird. I've seen a lot of weird cases where I read about a lot of weird cases because I wanted to see about head injuries, and they don't always manifest. It's not like you get a head injury and it's automatic that you got symptoms right away.
Now, on the flip side of all that, there also wasn't. It's not like his mom was like, "You good for nothing son of a bitch." You know
Yeah.
what I mean? His mom was actually very supportive of like his life.
Yeah.
Like he seemed to have very little stress at home,
Mm-hmm.
and like his mom actually encouraged him to go on this vacation.
Yeah.
So that doesn't sound like he's the whipping boy either. You
Yeah.
know, it's not like he has all this pressure on him either. His mom actually acknowledged the fact that he had been helping with the dad every weekend and said, "Hey, you need a break. You need to get like your buddies are going to Bulgaria. They're gonna have a good time. You need to go." Like she
We're
actually
gonna get some
pushed
Bulgarian strange.
him. Yeah,
You need to
right?
get down there.
Yeah, she like pushed him towards it.
Right.
So it's not like his mom was at fault either, you know.
Mm-hmm.
However, I've been to an airport thousands of times. I've never sprinted out of an airport.
You two scariest shit you ever seen in your life is somebody running in an airport.
Yelling, they're not gonna kill me.
Right.
I've never done that. I've never seen that.
If somebody runs out the door yelling, "They're trying to kill me," I am right behind them.
Right? Who is it, man?
What does he look like?
Fuck that guy.
Is he fast?
But right, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a huge contrast to hey,
that might be
having a
just
good
an
time.
American thing, but we're a little
Right.
skittish in our airports.
We are. But so okay. Also, saying that he's like went somewhere and hasn't been seen, and he shows up in another country. That's also not far-fetched because of the story we just told about the guy that was missing for like 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And ended up in Brazil and had no idea how he got there.
Yeah.
Now,
he did
I think I've said
everybody
this.
Else.
I think I've said this like several times in our podcast. I know a girl that's missing.
Right.
Except she's not missing.
Right.
And then it's this. She's like, so out in California, they have the Slab City, which is like lawless. It was like it's an abandoned Air Force base. They abandoned it in the 40s, right?
Yeah.
And it's called Slab City. It's if you look at it, it's fascinating. It's fascinating. It's the last lawless place on earth. So they kind of have their own justice. And there's like, I don't know, there's like 600 people that live there. And then in tourist season, there's like 3,000 people that live there. But it's in the middle of the desert. So she was a friend of mine. And it was like a friend of a friend type of thing. Mm-hmm. But I met her like firsthand. So she was a friend of mine. And then, it's just like, you know how you meet people and then you don't see them for a couple of years and you see them again or whatever, right? It was kind of like that. But then all of a sudden, in my Facebook feed, they're like, so-and-so's, missing. And I'm like, oh, shit, really? Mm-hmm. So I look and I sent her a message and nothing. And then somebody's like, we located her. She's in the valley. Which means not good. That means she's not living in the valley. She's not in a studio apartment overlooking the mountain. Like, she's probably homeless, right?
Right.
Okay. Then she's like back online. Somebody set her up with like a house that she had made into like a commune, and the guy that owned the house died. So they lived there for a couple years. The guy that owned the house died. And then, like, his kids are like, yeah, get out of the house. We're fucking flipping it. Fucking
Right.
California real estate, bitch. Get out. So, like,
Right.
yeah. So then she gets kicked out. And then she goes missing. She's like, missing. Everybody's like, she's missing. And I'm like, again? And then here, she turned up in Slab City in California. So, like, there's that there's a place for maybe, you know, you want to live on the fringe.
Yeah.
But those are kind of the only possibilities. He's either dead, he either has no idea who he is and is roaming around, or he chose to leave because there was so much pressure in his life, and he's like, fuck it.
It could be a combination of the first two also. He could have been wandering around not knowing who he was, and because he wasn't taking good care of himself, he passed on due to malnutrition or bad health or infection or some shit, you know.
All right, well, let's get into it. Let's see what we think.
All right.
All right, so why don't you go first?
All right. Well, my theory on this is that it is due to the head injury. That the medicine, there's conflicted information on the medicine, because at some point you get told that he gets the prescription from the doctor, and I heard in one story that he came back to the hotel room in the morning and he talked to the friends, and they talked him into going to the doctor, and he came back from the doctor with pills. So they're like, they made it sound like he came back with the prescription. And then when you hear from the airport doctor, he says, no, he wasn't taking those pills. He didn't even fill out the prescription. And you'd have to think that was from information that
he gave him.
Yeah, that he gave him, and not something that he like looked up, you know. I don't see him going to the trouble of trying to look it up and see if he actually filled out this prescription or not. Why would he? Because he's sitting right there telling him. So I don't, those side effects for that were like, there's rare cases of this side effect that deals with that type of antibiotic, but not necessarily that manufacturer's antibiotic. Like, I looked up their side effects that they had listed for that specific name brand, and they didn't mention anything about paranoia or delusions or anything like that. So I don't think it was the medicine. That would be like a really weird freak thing anyway. I mean, that would be so super unique that he got these super rare side effects from just starting an antibiotic. So I think though that it is likely that he got a head injury, and that there was something going on in there that was messing with his wiring, you know. And I think that was what it was. Like, he was hallucinating and seeing things because of the head injury. He believed that people were chasing him or coming after him. You know, that sounded very much like stories I've heard from guys that are on fucking drugs, you know, where they get real paranoid and they're looking out the window and they think somebody's always looking for them. They point stuff out to you and you're like, there's nothing there, man. You know, it sounds like that, but but there was no word about drugs or anything. So
I had a cookout at a bar that was like, hey, that guy was fucking following me last night. He's got a fucking red truck. I'm like, that guy's from the Dog and Game. He's not. he shoots clay pigeons, and then he goes home and has a scotch and gets up in the morning and he's a banker.
Hey man, I know a guy that used to smoke crack a lot, and he one time we were over at somebody's house, and he was just being weird and really paranoid, and then all of a sudden he was like, "Hey man, they're coming down on us," and I was like, "Who's doing what?" And he's like, "They're getting ready to surround us right now. Don't look, dude. Don't look." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Oh shit, man, they're on to us big time." He was like, and I was like, looking around, like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
But that's
like,
real.
He was like, "Quit looking around me." He goes, "They're over there by that sign right now across the road." He's like, and I was like, "That sign over," and I knew so bad that he was just having hallucinations that I was like, I'm gonna prove it to him, even though it's making him fucking pissed. And I just turned and I ran towards the sign he was pointing at, because he swore the agents were swarming and they were sitting in like the bushes waiting to jump. And so I ran over the sign. I was like, "There ain't fucking nothing here, man." You know?
Yeah.
Then he was like, "That was my bad. I'm freaking out," you know? And it's like, they're so confident in what they're seeing. But like I said, that was drugs. There's no history of drugs with him. So I'm thinking it was the head injury that caused this, that there was something neurological going on there.
All right, then what happened to him?
So he takes off running into the woods, and slowly he's like losing his memory. You know, slowly it's like everything's changing in his brain, and he becomes the guy in Brazil, you know, where he loses his memory. He has no idea what's going on, and he starts drifting, and any number of things could have taken place then. He could have died in the woods in Bulgaria from exposure and just still hasn't been found. You don't know what kind of lengths their searches go to there. You know what I mean?
Probably not.
It's different, you know, everywhere, but you know, some people.
There's no Amber Alert.
Right. So
alive or dead?
I want to be optimistic and say he's alive, but it's been so long that you'd think that somebody would have spotted him along the way at some point, or put two and two together at some point. He, after all, was the most famous missing person on YouTube. That was like a real moniker he got for all the views that video has gotten, which are like more than any other missing person's last camera view. And so you think that there's like a really good chance that somebody's going to put something together and be like, "Hey, I think you're that missing dude." But he very may well have died a John Doe somewhere.
Yeah.
Been disposed of, and nobody knows that he was the guy.
So
that's my theory, is that he's most likely, if he passed, that he got a head injury. It made him delusional. He nonsensically ran away. At that point, he was to the elements, and he either succeeded and he's lost his memory of who he was, and he's living homeless somewhere, or he's dead.
Has passed.
He's passed away, and he might even been a known death. They just didn't know who he was, because he didn't have any ID on him or anything, and he was in a foreign country. So, and I know they said that his mom hired a private eye who investigated all the hospitals and checked for anybody that was like, you know, with any signs of amnesia or delusional, or any patients without information or names, and he couldn't find anything. Mm-hmm. So he either died in the woods and he's been dead and nobody's found him, because I think if they found a body at that point anywhere around the airport,
he made it for a while,
and then, you know, passed away somewhere as a nobody, a homeless person that nobody cared about.
Okay.
And he's crazy talking to himself and thinks everybody wants to kill him all up until his death.
Okay.
Is what I think.
I don't hate those theories. I think both of those are solid.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason I'm going to go against that he's dead is that he was very healthy when he went missing.
In all fairness, they said he was proficient in like hunting and trapping and several outdoor fishing, all that stuff.
So this girl that I know that went missing, she was very healthy. She was like a yoga person. She was a forager, which, if you know what that is.
Yeah, my wife is.
Okay, so she was a forager.
The fucking lawn is what it means.
Yeah, right. She'll look outside and make a salad.
Yeah.
Right. She was a forager. She was able to survive under this. So, like, even though nobody has heard from her, this girl that I know, in like 5 years, I don't think she's dead.
Right.
I don't think he's dead. I'll tell you why. Because, like, when I grow a beard, I'm a different person. I look like a different person. There's no way to tell my facial features. If you see a picture of me, like, let's just say a Los Angeles headshot, right? Black and white. And then you see me with a beard, I'm like two different people. And so this guy is that. He's this good looking kid in his 20s. He looks very put together.
Yeah.
And then if you throw like a scraggly beard on him and some shitty clothes,
they show it. They got a side by side where they did, like, when they did a wanted poster or a missing persons poster of him, the picture they put off to the right was like him with scraggly hair and a beard. Yeah, and it's like two different guys.
He's like, the fact that he was so like health conscious seems to me, and with you, what you were saying, that he has like knowledge of how to like take care of himself.
Yeah, hunting and trapping, they said.
Maybe he did have a head injury, and maybe when, maybe he was a little bit paranoid, because I can't wrap my head around Russian mobsters wanting to kill a guy because a Pittsburgh Steelers fan said "fuck him." He's a Bedlam. You know what I mean?
Right.
I can't wrap my head around that. Like, even Russian mobsters.
Yeah.
Who get paid.
Yeah, there would have to have been something more shady going on that he didn't tell his buddies about.
Nobody knew that.
If there was like a chance of that, you would hear it in like characteristics about him or something like that. That he would go out and make some backdoor deal with Russian mobsters or Bulgarian, gangsters.
And nobody was like, "I'm not surprised that guy's in the shady shit all the time."
Right.
Everybody's like, "It's weird, dude." He was like, he's actually a really cool guy. I don't know what happened.
I can't even believe he got in a fight.
Right, exactly. So, a big part of me thinks he's alive, and it's just infrastructure that he hasn't been found, and either he's under like another identity, or
he's so paranoid that they can't find him because he knows that people are looking for him. So every time you're looking for him, he's paranoid about it, and he hides more.
And, we don't have insane asylums. But every other country does.
Right.
Every single other country has insane asylums.
Yeah, we just got ghost hunter places now.
Right. So who's to say he's not in an insane asylum? Like, living there to this day. So I think with this one, we have to say,
how crazy would it be if what you're saying is right, where he like went nuts, left, gets picked up, put in an insane asylum. What if his memory like goes clear? He remembers everything. He tries to convince them that he's Lars Mittank, and they're like, "Yeah, we knew he was crazy. You're not the missing person."
Just to put it in perspective, another friend of mine had a bad drinking problem, really bad, right? And he got so bad that he worked at a really famous hotel in Los Angeles, rich hotel. And he had been there for like 20-something years. He had like a really bad night. He fucking, he would drink like a fifth of Absolute a day. Well, it's what alcoholics call wet, where you're constantly drunk.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So he's constantly drunk. He goes off the rails one night, has like a whole set of events that didn't happen. He ends up in the hospital, right? He's talking on the phone to nobody, right? And we go and see him, and I'm like, "Hey man, how are you?" And he's talking to this girl on the phone that's not there, and he's like, "She says you're weird," and I'm like, "All right, whatever." right?
She's weird, made up.
Right. So the hospital's like, "Hey, I won't use his name. Hey, homie, enough with the phone. We're done. You pick up the phone again, and we're going to strap you down." So he's like, okay, fine, right? So he like leaves the phone. So the next day I called him, and I said, "Hey man, I'm at the deli. You hungry?" He's like, "Yeah, dude, yeah." I'm like, "We want turkey or roast beef?" He's like, "A turkey." So, all right, cool. I'll be up. So it's like it's literally at the base of the hospital. I come up and he's fucking strapped in his bed, and he's like, "I told you there was somebody on the other line of the phone."
He's bringing me a turkey sandwich, you fucking liar. Lay down.
So, like, to your point, right? Like, you know, that was in America.
Yeah, right.
Right. So to your point, like, all of a sudden he's like, "Yeah, I'm this guy."
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Lars Mittank. They're like, "Yeah, right. Tell it to the judge, buddy."
Right. Next thing you know, somebody's bringing you a turkey sandwich. We've heard it all, buddy.
I know. So I think what we should say is it the probability is he alive or dead? And I think it's probable that he's alive and he's either homeless or in some kind of facility. That's what I think. What do you think?
I think he's dead.
He's dead.
Yeah.
All of them make sense.
Yeah, I think he's dead. I just think he wasn't in a good spot when he took off, like, because nothing made sense.
Yeah.
Didn't make sense that anybody would be following him, trying to rob him.
But how did he die?
I mean, I get it that he got into a fight.
The elements just got him, or maybe he had an aneurysm or something.
It could have been. He could have just been not taking care of himself. I mean, if he went like really truly off to like the deep end, and he just went out in the woods somewhere, you know what I mean? And he was paranoid and he was hiding and he kept hearing stuff and he'd run some more, and he could have exhausted himself and given up to the elements, and who knows how deep he could have got into the woods. I didn't get a chance to, that was one of the things I didn't get a chance to do research in this, was I wanted to kind of look at the terrain around the airport and see how lost he could actually get.
No.
Because because from what they were saying, like the woods were big enough that he could die from exposure and people wouldn't find him. So
yeah, I heard that too.
So I don't know. I mean, if that's the case, if there's big enough area of wilderness there, he could have if he was in that paranoid delusional state, you're going to constantly, I mean, you go in the woods, God, you're going to hear, I don't know, for all the people that are listening that live in the city, if you sit in the woods at night, you'll hear all kinds of stuff, weird stuff. Even when you think you know every animal and insect in that place, you'll hear stuff that'll surprise you and haunt you. You're like, what was that? You know, there's stuff that makes some weird noises out there.
Oh,
and
for sure.
There's even owls that they sound like ghosts. You know, they do. They sound just like ghosts. And it's like the fake Scooby-Doo kind of ghosts. But there's like all kinds of stuff that, you know, there's going to be nocturnal animals moving around, snapping twigs, and to him that could be they're getting closer, and so he keeps moving deeper into the woods. I just think he was set up into that mind frame to be in that situation where he would die of exposure before.
So I think we're doubtful that he's alive.
Yeah, I'm doubtful.
And there's a small percentage that he's either in a facility or homeless somewhere.
Right.
None of them are like he's in the French Riviera. Right?
Yeah. He reinvented himself. And
he did not.
I don't think he did. This wasn't even like some of the other disappearances we've said where they had like just cause to like
or an alternate plan.
Right, to start all over again. Where
he didn't have there was nobody that said, you know what he always said?
Yeah. I wish I was playing guitar on the beach.
Yeah, like the guy from Columbus.
Yeah.
Like, not one person said that about him.
Yeah.
That was one thing, Brian Schaefer. That was one thing that like struck me about this case. That was not one person was like, he always said he'd moved to Margaritaville.
You're right. Yep.
Not one person said that. So I think
not even Pina Colada Berg.
Right. But I think we're in agreement.
Yeah.
I think we're in agreement that it's doubtful that he's alive, and even if he is, it's not in a good place.
Yeah, and I think it's telling kind of so his injury when he got beat up was like in the ear, you know.
Yeah.
And if you ever watch fighting, you know, UFC and shit like that, when they get him right below the ear, right where the jaw meets the ear.
Terrible.
That's lights out. That's the switch. They get caught there and boom, you're done.
Because that's where your brain hits your skull.
Yeah. So that's, I mean, it's very likely that like he got some kind of concussive force that manifested itself a few days later into this paranoid delusion state, because it happens. Sometimes it even happens years later after head injuries.
Yeah,
where they have psychosis,
like football players.
Yep, football players, American football players have it a lot.
Sure. I mean, so we're doubtful.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we sign off, and I don't know if we've named all of these countries.
Yeah.
But we're at 69 countries.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right, we are.
That's right. We can't take on any more countries, so.
Sorry. Stop listening.
Sorry, we got to stop right there.
But we should give them a shout out.
Okay.
So if you are in these countries, thank you for listening to us. Chile, Vietnam, Kenya, Oman, Paraguay, Kuwait, Sri Lanka, Saudi Arabia, Uruguay, and Hungary. Thank you so much.
Yes.
For listening to us.
Right.
But not bad, right?
Yeah.
We started a little over a year ago.
Yeah.
And just by our numbers, we have the same people listen to us all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you guys. You guys are
for sure. We love you guys. But for tonight, we are in the case of Lars Mittank. I think both of us are doubtful that anything good happened.
Yeah, I don't think it's this a romantic story. Like,
no, Like maybe Brian Schaefer.
Yeah.
Or
like Snea.
Or like Snea.
Yeah. Snea could have ran off with a girl, but lived
But
a real life. But yeah, I don't think any of
happen.
that was the case. I think it's a sad ending. I don't think there's going to be a happy ending on that.
And it sucks because he, by all accounts, seemed like a solid dude.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Well, for tonight, I'm Anthony.
I'm Brandon.
And this is Everything That's Weird. For show notes and merchandise, go to www.everythingthat'sweird.com. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter. And be sure to like, subscribe, and review anywhere that you listen to podcasts. Thank you for listening. See you next time.